welcome to the Fourten podcast. As always, I know we missed last week, but as always, and as usual, we are live every week to talk about the things going on, mainly in the Super Soccer League, but also in other things of other teams and leagues we cover. But fear none, I'm here, your host Geo. With me is my co-host and good buddy, Mr. Noah Walker. How you doing today, buddy?
Tired, tired, but also excited. Got to work and excited somehow. Lots happened this week.
Yeah, it was an action-packed week, and we're gonna dive into all things that happened this week. But before we do that, make sure you do hit that subscribe button, like, comment, do all of the above because we want to get in other people's algorithm because they need to hear this stuff. It's important stuff, man. The league here is fantastic. The level, the competition is exciting stuff. And we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna start not in the Super Soccer League. We are gonna start in the Open Cup because the Open Cup is first of all, aside from the Super Soccer League, it's probably my favorite competition because I love seeing the local teams go against the professionals, and we're gonna talk about one of those, and that's our very own Virginia Dreams went against Richmond Kickers on March 19th in City Stadium. And for those that don't know, City Stadium is in Richmond. And so Richmond hosted Dreams. I want to start with Noah. I want to get your reaction from this game because this game, like, it was a Virginia win, a 3-1 win. It's not a lucky win, it's a very convincing win. So I want to get your reaction from this game, Noah.
First off, let's go dream. I mean, I I had a hard time containing my excitement. I mean, I wasn't trying to, but I was texting the wrong group chats, with my excitement. I was unbridled. I was so bummed I couldn't make it to this match. That was my original plan, was to go down to Richmond, support the dream, support the Super Soccer League. Unfortunately, I was just getting over strep throat, but I did watch on TV. And I mean, it looked, obviously I'm biased, right? But it looked like a game that was in no way a fluke. Virginia Dream scored first. They looked, the better team for stretches. Of course, Richmond Kickers, they did hit back. They are a professional side after all. They found an equalizer, but Virginia Dream, they never looked like a team that wanted to go into their shell and just kind of defend. They were very confident in their ability, and I think that's so unique, right? There's cup sets. There were other cup sets even in this round. I'm not claiming Virginia Dream was the only one, but the way they approached this game, Virginia Dream, um, was like they felt they're another professional side, and I'm so curious to see if they're able to continue approaching the game in the same way against Loudoun United in the next round. But yeah, 3-1. That scoreline says it all, right? There was no doubt left behind. Virginia Dream on top, and by default, of course, for Super Soccer League, we're happy to ride on the coattails of Dream and support them. It was so cool to hear, the commentary talking about Virginia Dream playing in the Super League, and it's good to see Virginia Dream. They've been dominant, obviously, in the last year in every match they've played in the Super League. But hey, it's it's reassuring. They're not just dominating in the Super League. They're dominant, just period.
Hey, look, you know what? I'm gonna give you my reaction too, but the fact that the commentators actually took a extra time. Usually, you could just do like a quick little scan and be like, "Oh, they played an MPSL or they played UPSL." But the fact that they went deep to find out actually what route they qualified in, and they talked about the Virginia Super Soccer League or the Virginia Conference in the Super Soccer League. That for me, that was like, you know what? Props to these commentators that they actually went a step above to try to get that research in right, and then two, the fact that Virginia Dreams performed at that level against a professional side. I mean, it's a USL one team. If you guys aren't familiar, that don't follow the professional world here, and they're a good squad. So like to see Virginia go there and do what they did, I tip my hat off to them.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Richmond Kickers, one of the oldest continuing clubs in the country. So a lot of history there, similar to our Kickers here in Maryland. But I digress. Yeah, so it was great competition. But I can't wait for next round, and I will be there. I'm making every every effort to make sure I'm there next time.
That's actually a question in the chat from Mango or Mongo, or he was asking if we're gonna go there. And Virginia Dreams did really well. Virginia Dreams, or sorry, Dreams has been really well. They also had new players for the U.S. Open Cup. Um, yeah, I mean they performed fantastic, and we're both gonna try to go. To answer your question, I don't want to skip the first part. And Mike, thank you for. We're gonna talk about all the games we covered. I'm just checking the chat, Noah. So we
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
engaged. We're gonna cover a lot today.
We certainly are. Yeah, that Mike, welcome. Mango, welcome. Um, yeah, there were a ton of matches yesterday, but just to go back to the Open Cup, um, it's my favorite competition because it does allow for these types of matchups, right? This is, you know, a professional side playing an amateur side, right? A high level amateur side, but it's not otherwise possible in a system that doesn't yet allow for promotion relegation. You know, USL obviously making some huge headway in that regard. We're going to leave that topic for another day. We've talked about it a little bit,
That's a whole nother
but
episode.
it's a whole nother episode. But it's so amazing to that opportunity is still an allowance, and I just hope that we saw there was almost like an attack on the U.S. Open Cup. A year or two ago, there was some MLS sides, or really MLS as a whole, kind of made it less important for their schedule. They couldn't make time for the Open Cup, almost tried to leave it, um, which no other domestic tournament, you're not allowed to. It's the nation's pride, and every tier, if you're going to be a professional league, has to participate. And MLS almost kind of went with that. I'm going to try to keep my anti-MLS rhetoric out of this, but the cup is here. Please, 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 if you don't know about the U.S. Open Cup, find a little bit of information. Go check it out. Check out the cup on Twitter and Instagram and their
Yep.
website. They do an excellent job of covering. Shout out to Mike Baptista and for the whole team there and what they do. But keep the cup alive and do what you can to support. For all of us in the DMV, I would love to see as many familiar faces out there supporting Virginia Dream. I know we all have our rivalries here. There's teams, Virginia Dream, their team that's played at the top, so they'll catch some love, they'll catch some hate. But ultimately, we got to look at the bigger picture here. Whether it's Virginia Dream or it's Los Toros or it's Steel Pulse, Boley, Slancha, Baltimore City, you know what I mean? We're all here in this community together, right? And ultimately,
Yep.
like when one of us goes and succeeds, we're all succeeding. So I would love to go and support Virginia Dream and see some other familiar faces out there. Us against the world.
No, I mean that's how it is. That's how it is when it's like an international game, right? Like you may support Manchester United, you may support Man City, whatever. But when England goes plays, or if Manchester United continues on in the Champions League, the whole English sides get behind them. So we should do the same for the DMV area. I support that. You may have your rivalries here, but once they leave these state districts and state borders, you got to back each other. And right now, we're all backing Virginia Dreams, and what a team they are, man. I never gave you my reaction to this game, but man, that was an exciting game. I know there was moments in the game where it looked like Richmond kickers came back alive and they leveled the score and they started to look like they were controlling the game a little bit. But what a reaction from Virginia to not set back, to still push forward. I mean, there were some little mistakes that they had, but I mean, all in all, like the fact that they went at them is why they got that score line. I think the fact that they didn't stay back, if they would have sat back in a really low block, they probably wouldn't have got that score line.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, there were question marks, right, with the absence of um, the absence of Bill Hamid, right, who's been such a big presence physically in goal, and his incredible professional resume, but also his communication and what he brings, the X factor to that team. There was no Bill Hamid, but Joe Rice, what a huge acquisition. That just shows the reach of what Lucas Mendez and that organization have been able to kind of establish, in terms of their reach to go in and pull those players. No Bill Hamid. Okay, we got Joe Rice. Not to mention we got Austin Hyde and Lorenzo Herrera out there on the. They were also on the roster. I don't think Austin Hyde made the trip for was rostered on that day, but those are three great goalkeepers to have in your
Yeah.
stable. So, it was a case of next man up, and Joe Rice is going to be a huge piece for that team. As long as he's with them.
Yeah, I mean that their roster that they had was fantastic, and it's good to see Taylor Senior in the chat. You know,
Yes, Mr.
the
Taylor, welcome.
I'm sure he's really proud of of what the team has accomplished, and look, his son is, for those that don't know, is the coach, the head coach of Virginia Dreams, coach and manager, right? If I'm not mistaken, technical manager.
I'm not exactly sure like the breakdown and who has what role. I've always seen Lucas is sort of kind of the general manager,
Right,
player personnel, whereas Coach Taylor is that personnel, like that tactical manager in terms of
right.
managing the team and how they approach each and every game. I could be wrong. I don't want to misspeak, and perhaps someone could, maybe Mr. Taylor could fill us in the chat. But that is kind of how I've experienced the breakdown of responsibilities.
But I mean, what a performance! Super happy for them. But I do want to kind of we're really extremely happy for Virginia Dreams, but I kind of want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the Super Soccer League and what it means to have a team like Virginia Dream. Obviously, they are a dominant powerhouse here in the league, one of the stronger teams, I would say. But it still says a lot that they compete in this league and they're still with us and they haven't completely moved away. Obviously, they see the value in the league, they see the competition in the league. So so for you, Noah, what does it say about the Super Soccer League as a whole versus, like, let's say the rest of the US landscape or soccer landscape?
I'd like to see Virginia Dream as kind of a microcosm of what the league can and kind of has become, in terms of using this platform, right? It doesn't have national acclaim, right? But what we do, I think we do as well as anyone, which is give players a great platform. We give them the coverage that they deserve, every game being live streamed, video coverage. We obviously have our weekly podcast. Really try to reflect and give an opportunity for these players to continue to grow. We've had players that have used our video, use that as kind of an additional supplement or whatever to just make sure that they get a trial. I'm not saying that we give them the trial, but they're able to use that video. But what Virginia Dream right now is providing for the league is they are the benchmark, right? And they're making every team get better. I promise you, teams are going to continue gunning for them. They know this. They're going to get everyone's best, and they're going to get tested. It's going to happen every season at least a few times. There's going to be a few games. We saw Alexander United, right, twice able to pull points in the Super League last year. They executed a game plan, and they didn't have the success Alexander United for every game, right? But in that dream game, they locked in, and that's huge to pull points twice from a team that just goes on and beats a professional team, right? And it makes the Super League
Hmm.
better having those teams. It makes any league that has a team of that caliber. Before, right? In the past, Steel Pulse has kind of played that team in Maryland, and now we have a foil. Of course, the Super League final the last few times has been Steel Pulse, Virginia Dream. We're waiting for some teams to kind of, to unthrone one of those two teams. But I think teams are either going to kind of fade away, right? Because you don't want to get beat 6-0 over and over and over or whatever, or they're going to get better. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
Dream's a great benchmark to have.
yeah, like I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, Dreams is the benchmark. Steel Pulse is the benchmark in Maryland, but I see a lot of teams getting close, right? Maybe this season is the season that they get pushed a little bit further. But I mean, I'm really excited for this year of Super Soccer League because I see a lot of teams doing a lot of wonderful things. And now that Virginia, if I'm a team, I'm Los Toros, and I know what Virginia Dreams did in the U.S. Open Cup, the Lamar Hunt Open Cup. I'm gonna do my best to try to take points from them because then I can say, like, you know what, I can compete in the U.S. Open Cup and I can do what Dreams does. Right? That's just a beautiful thing to have in the league and kind of like a fuel to everyone's fire to really get there. And by teams doing that, they're helping Dreams out to have that competition, which they can use to get ready for their next run again. Um, and to answer the question in the chat about it, we're going to talk about Loudon here in a second. But the question was, if Dreams wins against Loudon, who do they play? I want to say they would play the winner of um, I want to say Hearts, Hearts and Hartford Athletic, but I could be mistaken there. It's either that or yeah, I think it's Hartford Athletic or Portland Hearts of Pine. So those are Connecticut teams. I don't know.
So
Forgot what state was.
It's not MLS next, or sorry, it's not the next round isn't MLS. It would be the round after that where it would go to the MLS teams, the fourth.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Or MLS teams are introduced because it's the third round, right? So it would be April 15, 16 that they would be playing. Actually, you know what? I think MLS does come in the third round.
Yeah, it could be either a championship or an MLS team. Well, then even more reason. Go follow the cup. I wish we had concrete answers for you, but
No, I do have concrete answers. I have
okay, good.
concrete answers. Okay. So the rest of the US championship teams enter in the third round, and then MLS enters in the round of 32. So it would be if it's a US championship team that they were playing, because half the US championship teams have already entered. If it is a US championship, so if it, let's say Hartford Athletics win, they wouldn't. That's who they would play. Now, let's say Portland Hearts wins, then they would raffle off against a USL Championship team, right? And that's how they'll sort it out. And then to answer something, a question we had two podcasts ago about the team that advances the furthest, the $25,000 prize money. It is true. So if Virginia Dreams advances the furthest from the open division pot, or yeah, pot, they would get, it's not $25,000, it's $50,000. So big money on the line.
Come on, Dream, win that and add the third camera angle. Let's go.
That's too
We're going
funny.
ESPN up here. No,
So
I
it's
mean
a it's a it's a little crazy, but I mean, hey, you know what? Like Virginia Dreams,
they're
get
not
that
that
money,
far
man.
away. There's only a few teams left, right? And you brought up some good points. Look, first, I just want to say circle that date. Everyone who's here in the chat watching along with us, circle the date. April 2nd. Is it 7 p.m.? Yeah. And
Yep.
so
Segura Field.
Segra Field, we'll go back to our sibling rivalries back here after that game. Let's go. Let's support the Dream. After that, hey, your brother, you got to back him in anyone he's fighting outside the house, but in the house, we're going back to our rivalries. But let's go support them, and and let's see how far this journey can go. It's really it's good for all of us here in the DMV and especially the Super League. But you mentioned Los Toros, right? And that's a team that has been on the rise, right? And they see themselves as a potential foil for Virginia Dream. They had a huge win, and I don't know if we're ready to make that pivot just yet. Did you have any?
Yeah, no, let's go. Let's go for it.
Yeah, congratulations to Los Toros. They another team, that we're so proud, advancing to the National Amateur Cup by way of the MDCVSA State Cup qualifiers. They defeated Yins United in that State Cup qualifier. I believe they did enter as an APL team. It's one or the other. They're a Super League team as far as I'm concerned too. So I don't want to step on or steal the APLs. Like Thunder. Congratulations to the APL and Los Toros, but we're still proud of them. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're still proud of Los Toros. They still play within our league, and I want to give them a huge shout for that accolade. Qualifying, they'll join Das Beer Hall and, of course, Christos. And I do believe Yins is also going to get a berth in that tournament as well. Yins United, the Pups, because there's two teams from Virginia. But Los Toros won that trophy in Virginia this weekend. We got to cover that game. Bruce had the call, and it was a close game. It was 3-2. Congratulations to Los Toros. And I do think we will see, we mentioned teams going at Virginia Dream. Just want to say one word of advice. Please, please, please go at it tactically. Do not try to play Virginia Dream like man for man who's better, because I promise you they're game planning and they're probably good enough to win without a game plan a lot of the time. Like that's the reality of it. But they still are. Like they're getting to the field early. Their coaches are drawing things up. We had the pleasure of speaking to Coach CJ Taylor. Like, please, we saw Alexander United. That's why they were successful against the Dream. They looked at reality and said, "Hey, this is how we can win with." I think it was a low block. I can't remember exactly, but you know what I mean. They loaded up the midfield and they just knew they were not going to beat their midfielders man for man. That's not you're not going to beat Kofi, Mike Akinkoye by just going 1v1 in the midfield. They'll go through you like Swiss cheese. Game plan it, and then rely on your talent as well. But that is that's all I wanted to say about that. Congratulations to Los Toros, and good luck in
It
their
was a
next
good game.
stages.
It was a good game that had a double meaning on the line, right? It was it was winning the trophy, but then also points on the APL season. So all in all, it's a good win for Los Toros. Big team that I think should be on the lookout. Well, we're gonna make a transition over Super Soccer League, but Yins United, we got to find a way to get them in the Super Soccer League because they are a team that needs to be in it. You need to be where the competition is because you're a good team. This is me calling on you right now. So we're
Would
gonna
love
clip
to
this
see. Yeah,
and send it.
yeah. Yeah, no, they're a great competitor. I mean, to
Right.
go and be in a game, they've traded back and forth results with Los Toros, and that tells me everything I need to know. Obviously, Yins is a team I've known even before I knew about Toros, which I know have been around for quite a while. But you know, Yins and they've done well to continue sustaining the success they've known for years by adding new players, young players, and yeah, would
Yeah.
love to see that. Um, but right now, balls in Toros's court because they got the result most recently, and I think they'll play on April 6th in the Amateur Cup.
April 6th is gonna be another heavy day for
Yeah,
us.
another heavy day for us.
Thank you everyone in the chat for noticing how many games we covered yesterday. We had a little bit of hiccups, mainly me, but it was fine, and it was a great day, a great full first day of full action. Right, we kicked off on the 16th, but this weekend was every team played, almost every team played, and throughout the week, Noah did excellent with the Virginia conference where you think you had games what Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Um, it
Yeah,
was
with the strep throat, we made it work. Yeah, that was a draining week to say the least. And then yesterday with the sun being out for, I think I covered the five. Well, we worked
well,
together on a few of those.
look at my face.
Yeah, man.
I'm a little red right now.
Yeah, likewise. And we were in the shade. Well, you were out and about, but yeah, it was such a great day. And I want to get into those matchups because we learned a lot. Some of our predictions were reinforced, but I was pleasantly surprised by a few of the teams. And I definitely want to go matchup by matchup and hear your reactions and of course give my own. Should we just go chronologically as starting with the Virginia games?
Yes, but first, can we do one thing? All right. Well, here, let me leave it up to the public. Would you guys rather hear our early power rankings, or do we go into the games? You know what? I think we should do the games then the power rankings.
Because yeah, I need that to, or I was gonna say, I need that to orient myself before like I give, any kind of. Let's end with that. Let's end with the power rankings, and I'll have plenty of people who see me throughout the week telling me how wrong I am and going to prove me wrong, and that's what I want. I want you first off. If you're watching, I don't care how upset you are at me. If you're watching the show and you're subscribed to the channel, we're good. But yeah, be upset at me and prove me wrong. Any team I've predicted against, absolutely. Take it personally. Get it in your group chat. I love that. I love being proven wrong. But I'll say this, I am making these predictions based on, the evidence I got. So, you know what I mean? If something has changed, show it on the field and it'll be reflected. And in that same token, that same spirit, let's get into these matchups because I got proven wrong a few times and I want to talk about it.
First of all, first of all, Peter, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate it. We work really hard, so we appreciate the kind words. And Noah, there's a message in the chat saying, please stop giving away secrets. This is from Virginia Dream, so.
That's from Mr. Taylor. That ain't no secret that Mike Akinkoye and Kofi are absolutely dominant players, and you can't go man for man. That's not a secret. If you don't know that, you should not be. Oof, we're
Well, I
down
mean,
on elementary level.
yeah, I mean, like if you haven't heard the interview with Coach Taylor, you have to go listen to it where he talked about like the
Yes.
level that you need to be at is not just showing up and rocking up. You have to have a coach. You have to have strategy. You have to think about what your shape is going to be on offensive, defensive, the transition. Like that's where this league is going to, right? And I think I think he said it at this point almost if not all every team has a head coach now. The strategy is starting to be part of the league. Whereas before it might have not been the case, but now it's like everyone is looking like this and this is only going to elevate the game. So you have to be strategic. You may not be able to go one for one, but strategy is the way to go. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But let's get into these games. Let's get into these games because we got a ton
Yes.
of games to cover.
Absolutely. Okay. First match that we had. Well, I think we recapped the ambition and kickers game, right? We did get to talk
Yes.
about that. Ambition, that was a huge first game of the season. They defeated kickers 1-0 in their first match since promotion. So that's been covered. Tuesday was kind of the kickoff in earnest. Blazers against Doratus, and this was one I got wrong. I predicted in favor of Doratus. I know this is a young squad that did great things. They made it the playoffs of the Super League. You know, they've now entered the UPSL, and they've got a lot of growth because of that. A lot of new trialists, a lot of new players. The Blazers, they of course also have a UPSL team as well. They're also making a lot of growth. But in fairness, I predicted I think 3-1. I 3-1 against the Blazers, and the score was 3-1 with what, like 15 minutes to go. Blazers had a fantastic response to going down 3-0 actually at by the half. Um, and it was a game that it was, when you look at the result, even how the scoreline transformed throughout the game, it doesn't tell the full story because Blazers had a lot of like great chances early on. Jack Pinson for Doratus came up huge. There was also some squandered chances, and this is a game that either team could have won. Blazers, I think, had probably the higher expected goal, but still almost ended up losing. So it was a weird game in that regard. Finish your chances, and you'll see better results. But there was a fantastic header in the 95th minute of stoppage
Oh
time.
yeah.
Controversy galore. 4 minutes of stoppage time. We were still playing into the fifth, which it's 4 minutes minimum, just for all those who don't know how stoppage time works. But yeah, basically the final kick. Blazers equalize. Boom. First game of this season. What a game. My stock in Blazers has to go up a little bit. I mean, that showed a lot. I have to see a second game to see if that's taking my stock in Doratus down or it's more
Mm.
Blazers coming up, right? I think Blazers come up in either case, but it's to what degree. Um, but that was my recollection of that game.
My takeaway was, man, Blazers did well to dig deep and fight back because while the chances were there, they weren't finishing them. And anyone knows that the more those opportunities keep passing by, the more stress piles up, the pressure starts piling up. And especially when the opposing team's lead is getting wider, you're like, oh my God, why are we not finishing? Why are we not finishing? And the fact that they just dug deep and still fought back and the game ended the way it ended, it was fantastic ending to the game. But props to Blazers for really fighting back. Dorados, they were a good team. I mean, there's nothing negative that could have been said of them except the fact that they allowed Blazers to get back in. You got to kill the teams. You got to kill the team, especially when you're leading the way you are. You got to kill them early when their opportunities are running. So just you got to keep being more aggressive. I think I'm with you. I think for me, it's more the stock for Blazers is going up, and it's not so much the other way. I think Blazers is just becoming a better team, and I don't know, like you said, to how much, but they impressed me. They just the fight impressed me.
It's sink or swim, right? Blazers have had their hard knocks. They've been on the wrong end of some hard results, And they've been on both ways, right? They've been close, like close loss, team. They've also been blown out, and it's one of those things where they're either gonna, fail to continue to exist. That the management is gonna say enough is enough, or they're gonna get better, and they're continuing to exist, and they're getting better. And so, that's just the reality with any teams. Like, there's only so much a manager is gonna continue to put his team in at the highest level and want to put resources into it. You know what I mean? Until they just kind of call it quits. And it's this Darwinian kind of primordial atmosphere of team survival when teams, go defunct for whatever reason, financial, performance, commitment. Those players end up on other, and other teams get stronger, right? But Blazers, I
Hmm.
think they're surviving. I think this is the turning point season of survival for them, and I think that they are getting better. And that was a statement. Even though they only managed the 1 point, it was a statement result in week one.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they fought back the way they did is a statement. So props to Blazers. So
Yeah,
let's move over to Wednesday, which was the
Wednesday.
second Virginia match.
Yeah, this was the debut of Esperion in the Super League. They faced off against North Stars. It was a rematch of that final MDV Cup matchup from the winter. And North Stars, they had the opportunity and they took advantage of taking their revenge against Esperion. Um, this was a bit of a sloppy match. I'm gonna be frank in terms of my reaction. Neither team looked their blistering best. We did see North Stars kind of dominant in the midfield to some extent. I think Josh Fordyce had a great game, was able to connect with Chris Dunn for the lone goal of the match. Those two played together a long time, going back to Cap City in the WPL, and that connection was alive and well. But I do think there was a lot of mistakes that, Esperion were almost able to capitalize. North Stars did add a phenomenal young goalkeeper, 16-year-old Akil
Hmm.
Adikil. I'm butchering the name, but is going to be a new goalkeeper to watch. They lost Jack Pinson, who was their goalkeeper before. Pinson now full time for Doratus, and we mentioned him already. But that's a huge pickup. Um, Esperion, I was impressed with what I saw, but they were missing some notable faces, right? They didn't have Jason Ferrafino, one of their star attacking players. They didn't have Luis Soria, who was my favorite player for them in the MDV Cup. He stood out a lot against Christos, was able to create chance after chance, almost doing it by himself. But we did see the identity, right? Esperion proved that they are able to attack vertically. They did put a lot of balls over the top. They were able to almost catch North Stars by surprise. Um, but I just hope that, once they get their full play pieces back, that they don't turn too one-dimensional with those long balls and the vertical attack, because that can be a trap. You need to have the vertical threat as an option, but you can't lean on it too heavily. Otherwise, teams don't respect your ability to play through, and it's easy to counter.
Or and if your identity is vertical, you have to have the other options to lean back on. And I think that's what Esperion. I mean, even North Star to that point was a little sloppy in the midfield, right? Like it wasn't the cleanest of games, and that's where those mistakes you're talking about North Star was having. And to be honest, while North Star had the better game, this is the game they should have had in the MDV Cup, right? The performance they had, they should have had this performance to win to let alone win to tie the game
Yeah.
and not lose against Esperion. But Esperion did well. But then we saw the opposite. Now we saw North Star take the points. They outperformed Esperion, but not by much, right? I mean, it was very impressive performance from Esperion for it being their debut. Obviously, they could have had a better performance having their full pieces, but I think it's a good start. It's a lot of learning lessons they could take away from it. They got to clean up the mistakes. They got to watch the just overcommitment because sometimes they got caught way too high. And was it North Star that kept getting called offsides or was it Spirion? I can't remember.
It was North Stars, and I actually think that's a whole side tangent. I don't want to put any referees out there, but this was one. Look, I'll acknowledge there were some mistakes made. I think that there actually were quite a few of those that probably should have been onside.
But but
When looking
but
at the
that's to my
replay,
point, right? Like they got to watch that. They got caught high, way high sometimes.
oh, Esperion. Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this: I predicted against North Stars. sheerly not because I don't think they're good enough, but because how North Stars has a bad habit of starting the season really poor. They've been like shaken out of their senses the last few seasons where they start out poor. They ended up having a really strong campaign, but like the first game they had one game they lost 10-1 to Estudiantes.
Yeah.
They've had those results. They proved me wrong. They started, albeit not their best game, but they got 3 points. So I do think that it's progress, not perfection, for the North Stars. So this is something to build on, absolutely. And they did a good job. I'll definitely just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I'm looking forward to the and Esperion. I'm not. Please, still send me the link to buy the jersey. I know I
No,
wasn't against y'all, but please.
it's this is not a North Stars haven't fully convinced me that they're going to be top, right? And Esperion certainly haven't convinced me that they're bottom, right? It's a 1-0
Right.
result.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
first game of the season. The jury is still out, but that's just my take. Um,
I,
and
if anything, this just shows me that Esperion belongs here. That's all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no question that they belong. They showed that they're on the level. It's just, can they find a way to get those results? On days where maybe they're not at their best, or can they just find a way to be their best and get those guys out there? Um, and we're going into our Thursday match, but I'm just thinking about the results this week. There really weren't any. Well, there was one blowout in
Well,
Maryland.
hold on.
One.
Let's wait till the weekend.
Yeah, well, that was the only one. That was the only one. There was two 4-2 results in Division One, right?
Yeah.
But every other game throughout the whole week in both all three conferences, Maryland Division One, Two, Virginia, that had more than a one-goal deficit, right? There was the two 4-2 results, and then of course the 5-1. That was the outlier. Everything else was either a draw or a one-goal game, and
Yeah.
teams at the bottom are catching up, right? And we'll see if that changes now with the entry of Virginia Dream this Wednesday. It could be different. This is a chance for Esperion to really bring everything they got. But right now, like, there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of great competitive games, and Thursday was one of them. Did you get a chance to watch this one?
I'm the monitor, man.
Okay, yeah, you were. Oh yeah. All right, I'm talking a lot. You tell me what your thoughts were on the Thursday game.
Dude, I gotta think about the Thursday game. What no, so the Thursday game, Alexandria United versus Los Toros, man. So Alexandria United for me is one of those teams that sometimes can go well. They obviously they can go either way, right? They could be really really good or really really disappointing, right? And both matches, both this match this past weekend and the or past week, not weekend, and the match against Alexandria or Los Toros in the MDV Cup were kind of similar to me because they played them well. It just something was a little off with them, whether it was the timing. I can't remember the score line right now. It was what was the score line?
It was 2-1, and it was another match where they scored first, right?
Yeah,
And they couldn't capitalize. They're so close to being at that elite
it's
level of
just
tough, but they're
it's
and I'm
just
sorry,
something.
Alexandria, right now it's a no because they haven't found a way to close out games, right? That the match against Orange just kind of was the
That's another
embodiment of
one.
everything of the worst parts of Alexandria. But you go back and, like, at their best, right? The results against Virginia Dream, right? I think they forced a result against a VA Revolution, a really strong VA Revolution. And they've had these results against some of the best, but sometimes, they're just not able to close out in these big time games. And that's right now where they're at with being on the cusp. There was a phenomenal goal though by Chris Mendoza. That
Oh yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
that was next level. That took Alexandria United up by a score of 1-0. Love to see the celebration with the family, giving love to, I think it
Oh
was
yeah,
mom and
yeah. He
pops.
ran over to hug him. Yeah,
That was
yeah,
a
yeah.
special moment. I was right there for that. Um, and the team was playing well, right? But Los Toros, they didn't look at their best. They made the adjustments. They were able to bring in um, Asfaha into the game. I mean, he was physically present on the field the whole game, but he got involved in the game a lot in the second half. Scored a goal assisted by Michael de Grandes, who's, I don't know if I didn't notice him before. He's been with the Los Toros for a while, but he's an incredible young player. Since his name keeps coming up in these
Well,
big
so
moments.
it might be the fact, and I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I did not see a Jack Stone, and
Hmm.
that opens up spots or other spotlights in other areas, and that might be what we're seeing happening.
Yeah. Well, no,
So
DeGrande's kind of fits a different role. He's a more of a midfield player.
right.
But yeah, I do understand what you're saying in terms of they had to approach the game in a different way. They didn't have necessarily the same hold up play um,
Hmm.
up top, and then they were able to get the ball worked through the midfield a little bit more. Um, and so yeah, DeGrande, shout out to him. He found a tremendous assist over to Esfaha. And when you put Esfaha in on goal by himself, like it's a lock almost. Like for those chances, like he just finishes those, and he got off the mark with a goal. A bit unfortunate, for Alexandria. The final goal was one that Ada Mahoney in the final dying moments of the
Oh
game
yeah.
put up across. It was a really nasty day, high winds, and the ball kind of sailed up. Anthony Vaca made kind of a half save, where he got wrong-footed going backwards, put it up into the bar, and it bounced down into the goal. After having a really strong performance, for the rest of the game, kind of one you would chalk up as a goalkeeping error. But a lot of positives to take away for Alexandria, but you have to be kind of honest with yourself and aware of the negatives, right? Because they
I'm
shouldn't
going
have even
back to
been in that position.
I'm
Yeah.
going back to my first point. It's something about Alexandria United is they're just missing something. Just whether it's just they're almost there, but I mean they're falling shy. I mean we saw it in the MDV Cup. We're seeing it in the Super Soccer League. I, something they need to figure. They either need to tweak their tactics or they just need to be a little bit crisper on the pass. It's just the silly giveaways, the turnovers when they're trying to build momentum. I don't know what it is, but something about them. They're just shy of being a top 14 for me. For me.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's move on to Maryland because we do have some a time crunch here because we still have what 6 games to get through.
Yeah, let's get to Maryland. You're totally right about that. By the way, is there any way you can turn me up? I'm struggling a little bit.
I try to turn you up, but it might be on your computer. But it's all right.
I'm just gonna talk
We'll
loud.
figure things out. Peter, we spent like 15 minutes trying to get Noah louder, but I don't know
Yeah,
what happened.
all good. I'm just gonna shout. You take us into Maryland in that first match. Although I guess no, because I was there for that one. We're gonna start with this Division 1 match. Das Beer Hall and Team United, a rivalry match that's really developed over the years. Both these sides came up through Division 2 in the Super League, um, and there was some fantastic back and forth matches. I remember a 5-4 like shootout like between the two. I don't even remember who won, but they've traded results. Of late though, Beer Hall has pulled ahead. They knocked Team United out of the MDV Cup with a 2-0 victory, and in this game it looked like more of the same early. Beer Hall went up 2 goals. Team United, to their credit, after looking really poor in the early stages of this game, they did find a response, and it looked like okay, there might be a game on here. But in the end, Beer Hall had way too much quality, and Team United kind of faded. They haven't been able to replace that Chibe and Wesa presence that they're not going to have anymore.
But that's what I was gonna say. Like in the later stages of the match, like Team United looked gassed. They looked gassed, and not only did they look gassed, Das Beer Hall was taking advantage of that because they were leaving some pockets in their defensive side where I just saw team. I was gonna say Team United, Das Beer Hall playing into, and I, you gotta think about it. Like Das Beer Hall was active in the winter cups, and they play in other leagues, just to stay active. I haven't heard much of Team United, so them getting gas later in the game might be due to it being the first game of the season.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope to see Team United, firing on all cylinders at the highest level, because right now um, it hasn't been that. But we're gonna see. Right now, it's Das Beer Hall good, Team United bad is kind of my. I'm anticipating that Beer Hall will be a top team. Somewhere
Oh yeah.
maybe just behind Steel Pulse, maybe around where Bowley's is at. I think that's where I see them. Team United, and don't take this the wrong way, Team or do and channel it. I think they're going to be bottom. I think they're going to be towards the bottom of the table. But I think that the 4-2 results shows there's not a giant gap between the top of the teams and bottom teams. And it's good to see, even when you're facing a quote unquote bottom team, you're going to have to be at your very best because any team could punish you in this league.
100%, 100%. All right, let's move over to. Can we knock out all Division One and then go to Division Two?
Yeah, let's do it. The next one, you were present for at least part of it, correct?
Was I? Which one was this? Steel Pulse?
Oh,
No,
Steel Pulse A3, huh?
I was traveling. I was
That's
traveling. I
right.
was listening to you, but I was
Yeah, yeah.
traveling to the Bowley's location. But that was Steel Pulse versus A3. Obviously, a Steel Pulse win. I mean, honestly, we talked about it before the game. We saw how the game went. Obviously, it was a 4-2 win for Steel Pulse, but we talked about it and we said Steel Pulse is the benchmark that you have to reach it. And I don't think A3 is just there yet, right? I think they still need to tweak a little things based on what I was listening to you. It was just they're just shy. They're just shy. Kind of similar to what we're talking about here with Das Beerhan Team United. There is a gap that A3 needs to work on.
Yeah, I would agree, but I don't think the gap is that large. I think it's again
No.
that's a team A3 Highlanders that very much can punish anyone on any given day. Um, Came very close. The Highlanders right now they need to find better ways to support Joey Amon, who is a phenomenal player. Actually, has played with Steel Pulse, in the Open Cup qualifiers a year ago. So intimately familiar with Steel Pulse and they with him, but he can turn into kind of a one-dimensional show at times. There were some other standout players, and I do think they're making gains in that regard. But at this level, at the Division 1 level, to be the best, you need to have like a entire front line, a complete front line. And we saw that very much in Steel Pulse, the likes of Musa Kande, Diarra
Yeah.
Zumana, Ramsey Hassan, supported by Emmanuel Oluwesi, and obviously that's an extreme example, but that's what it takes to be continually successful. I do think A3 Highlanders had some good growth. They had a really disappointing offseason in the Morton Cup. They're miles
Hmm.
ahead of where they were in the winter, had a lot of their players back, but in order to be elite, right, it's going to take just a little something more.
Yeah, I mean you know what? Also, props to Steel Pulse because we were wondering on what Steel Pulse's roster was going to be like, what how their
Yes.
commitment was going to be this year. The fact that that was their roster is telling me like, hey, we want the title back, and they're gunning for Virginia Dreams. So
Yeah.
props to Steel Pulse for that. And Oluwesi, he's a great player, but I think having a player like that in the midfield is going to help them a lot because we saw what they were like without Yusuf Naziri when they played. Why am I drawing a blank in
And
the
they played
final? Restosi.
Ristosi. Yeah. Yeah.
When they played Restosi. So like having him on the obviously different roles, but the midfield is so important for Steel Pulse, right? Because without Yusuf Naziri, there was a little bit of a disconnect from the midfield to the defense to the offensive side. So having a player like that also, obviously he's been with the team for a while, but just having him more often and throughout the whole season is going to help them because they need to grow that midfield.
Yeah.
I think that's the one. If I was to nitpick on Steel Pulse, I think midfield, obviously not Ramsey and not Yusuf, but the rest of the midfield lineup is the one place I would nitpick for Steel Pulse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair point. And I think you've hit on all the points. Like we got to give some credit to Steel Pulse because there were so many questions. Still not all 100% answered, but that was a really positive response, and I think they did more than like enough to win that game. They had the players, and if they continue to have that level of commitment, that level of showing, they're gonna be one of the top teams, and probably I'll say the top. I mean, well, I'm not going to get into power rankings just yet, but they were my best team from Division 1 on the day. That's just from what I see. But I didn't get a chance to watch one match, and that's our segue into Bullies against Ambition. Geo, I've talked a ton. I want to hear from you on this because I haven't even watched this one.
Yeah. So first of all, my apologies to Bullies because I missed the one goal from this game because
You
I was
didn't miss
dealing
it.
with.
We're gonna, as a group, we're gonna take responsibility. We put some hardware that we had some questions on. We learned a lot about it. We're gonna be better as DMV Sports Media because we're not gonna make that mistake again. But yeah, we had some hardware issues. That wasn't on you. You also had to fight the groundskeeper to have a spot to even watch, like film the game. Like, you're being too hard on yourself. But yeah, we do apologize. Yeah, to the fans. It was not the
Yeah, I
best
mean,
of our broadcasts we ever had.
I mean, it was a good goal from the Delaware native Ben Stern, but it was a good goal. It was the only goal of the match. It was a 1-0 win for Bowlies. Honestly, that match was really good. Bowlies had the more opportunities, but ambition was there. I mean, the performance. Let's start with the defensive side for ambition. Gomez, their center back, fantastic. He always cleaned up anytime it was a one-on-one, he was winning. He just made it a headache for both Texador, Ben Stern. Great performance from him. Bowley's looks good though. Bowley's looks very good. The
But
way
we
they
knew
move
that,
the
right?
ball. Well, we did know that, but
They
just
confirmed it. Yeah.
they confirmed it. And you know what? I got treated to something special both on the ambition side and the bully side. Watching Texador with his dribbling abilities and just creativeness, and on the other side, for ambition, it was Aliki Aliki John. I think that's how you pronounce his name. John is fantastic. He is such a good
Oh,
dribbler.
Akil John. Akil
Akil
John.
John,
Yeah.
that's how you pronounce it. He is, my God, he's like, this is the second time I've seen him like really focused on him, and my goodness, he is such a great dribbler and a great he just builds opportunities, right? The problem is I think ambition is missing a solid striker because anytime John or King creates an opportunity, there's no one there in the midfield, and you can't ask that of Sanjay Kareem to make it up and down the field. They need a solid striker, and I think that's what shot them in the foot. As where Bowley's had that offensive prowess, right? I mean, from defense to offense, Bowley was solid. The only thing, the nitpicking I would do for Bowley's is they got to take those shots, man. They try to move the ball just a little bit too much. They just got to test the keeper, test the keeper. I think they might have shot twice outside the 20-yard box. Like you got
Mm,
to test the keeper.
yeah. Yeah. I have. Was it Henry Gomez, who was the center back? Henry Gomez Jr. So he played a lot of striker. A lot of. He played in a forward role for Ambition last year. Where, by the way, Ambition were woeful at times defensively. So it's really good that they've patched that up defensively. But Gomez did provide, kind of that number 9 play for them last year. So you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have him in the back line and up top. So they will have to find a way to, add someone like you said. But it is good that they've patched up the defense because they lost to Bullies 10-0 last year in a game. And granted,
Whew.
different personnel, different situation, but that's the growth, right? And Bullies is a much better Bullies than they were last year. So that just shows where ambition is now versus, at points in the last season. Now, can they sustain that, right? It's good, all good and well to be good on some days, but then if you're really poor on some days, that's going to show up in your the goal differentials and stuff, and where you are on the table. So, can they maintain that consistency? That's my question to ambition.
That that back line for bullies is something to watch out for, man.
Yeah,
It just
yeah.
like Austin Hyde is, while he's a great goalkeeper. Any like every answer he had an answer to everything Ambition did, but it's also because of how easy the back line made it for him, right? They're just phenomenal, that back line from side to side. I mean, watching Navarrete and John going at it was probably my favorite thing of the night. But it was Navarrete was fantastic to compress him the way he did, even though he did create something. There wasn't another square ball that he couldn't play the square ball to a center or forward that wasn't there. So, I mean, Boldy's back line is just something to watch out for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that was another great match. I can't wait to see those teams, again next week. Is it time to take it into Division 2?
Yeah, let's go into Division Two. Can I start with Peru and Baltimore City?
Please do get us into Division Two.
All right, Division Two. We're gonna start with the first match of Sunday, which was Peru United versus Baltimore City. The debut of Baltimore City, and it was a 2-2 win. It was a very like roller coaster of a game where Baltimore City was up, Peru fought back to level the score. Obviously, there was always going to be some kind of question marks around refereeing, calls made certain ways because of how close this game was. But this was an exciting game. In the beginning, there were some doubts around Peru, but Peru figured it out, made some adjustments, brought some of their more veteran guys, and they did they did well to fight back and get a point from this. To be honest, obviously at the end of the game, Baltimore felt like they left a lot on the table, which in fairness, they did blow a 2-0 lead, and then on the other side, Peru United was happy to walk away from this game with a point compared to what last year wasn't a best one of their best years, right? So I think it is a lot of growth for Peru United, and I think Baltimore City feels like they left a lot.
Yeah, I hope that Baltimore City use this match to kind of regroup and see what it's going to take, right, to be successful. Peru United, they surprised all of us, least of all Baltimore City FC, but it's a good wake up call to say, hey, there aren't going to be any kind of give me matches. I didn't see any match that any team that's going to be easy. There was one blowout, but we're gonna still have to see, right, whether that's going to be good or bad, bad NPC, good touch kings, whatever. But I think there's going to be a lot of parity, a lot of tough teams, and any team in this league can punish you. That's a fact. So kudos to both sides. NPC, sorry, Peru United for coming back. Baltimore City, and the big win for both sides was the fan base, right? Peru United did a great job bringing supporters, but not just supporters like bodies, like color, like character, and a lot of fun. There was so much. There was kids running around. There was fans yelling and begging me to play the Peru Pride song. I don't even know the name of the song, but it was it was a great atmosphere. I had a lot of fun up there. Baltimore City, I know they have a great fan base, and they had some support there. Would love to see even more. I know that they have the supporters group with the drums and the flags and all that. So would be really cool to see even more of that as the season goes and we get warmer.
Before we move on to NPC versus Touch Kings, the Peru fans hilarious. I'm just look, just please always come out because y'all made me laugh. Like I know I wasn't up in the stands because I was taking photos, but y'all were hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Yeah. So on to the next one.
yeah. NPC versus Touch Kings. The debut of Touch. I was gonna say NPC Touch Kings. Man, this is a phenomenal side. This is a UPSL side joining the Super Soccer League. NPC is returning from last year, and in the first half, one story, right? Very close. NPC was surprising us. Uh, then the second half rolled in, and Touch Kings showed us who they are, and they ended up getting a 5-1 win. There was some positives for NPC. Goalkeeper Brown was phenomenal, lights out. I
Yeah,
honestly, if it wasn't for him, this game could have easily been like a 8-1, 7-1. It
easily.
was fantastic performance. Obviously, like you said, there's still it's the first game of the season. Things could change. NPC probably just could have had a bad performance. We'll see. And Touch Kings, we'll see what their games are going to be against some of the we'll call it heavyweights of the division too.
Yeah, for me, this was kind of what was expected, but it was kind of a circuitous route to get to the result. Like Touch Kings, I thought if they have their best players, or at least some of their best players, they're going to be a really tough team for anyone. And early on, it kind of felt like they were playing with their food almost in some regard. They were getting balls into the box and then not taking the shot, moving it around. They had two phenomenal set piece deliveries, which were the two goals. At the start of the half,
Yeah.
NPC actually scored in the first minute of the second half, and it was like, oh boy, here we go. Is NPC going to pull something off. And it did serve to kind of wake Touch Kings up and draw their urgency. We saw some phenomenal goals. My favorite was Madrano taking the volley out of the air from distance, and just the
Goodness.
cold celebration. I mean, that's what Touch Kings bring. There's nothing you can do, NPC, to counter that, really. I mean, that's just what they bring. So I think Touch Kings is going to be a team to watch out for. As they and MSI enter their UPSL season, it's going to be a question of attrition, and can
Yep.
they continue to bring out not only enough players? I mean, they have plenty of a roster, but how many of those 37 or whatever guys are on
Yeah.
that same level? And it's an open question. I mean, they might have that level of depth to be able to do it. That's why they're doing both leagues. But you know what I mean? I think it will get tougher, and it'll come down to a manager responsibility to continue managing those matchups. But kudos to Touch Kings, who are now top of the table in the first week.
What a team, though. I mean, what Touch Kings is something to watch out for. I mean, they're a good team. Obviously, this is the first match. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but from what I saw, they're a good team. Uh, I expected this, right? This they made NPC made me go through the roller coasters. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a blowout by Touch Kings, and then the first half happened, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? It's I think at the time it was like a 2-1 game, right? And or it might have been even tied. I don't remember.
No, it's 2-1. Yeah.
And I was like, NPC is literally proving me wrong.
Then
So
you got
I'm
proven right in the.
yeah. And then the second half happened, and I saw the touch king I was expecting, where it ended up being a 5-1 win, and it was a convincing 5-1 win. Obviously, NPC, there's things they need to work on, but I mean, I just that's what I thought touch kings were gonna do, and they had me doubting myself. But then the second half happened. They started taking shots instead of playing with their foods, and I mean, serious team. But
Yeah.
then let's go to the final match.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I know 5:30 we got, but final match, that was, I have to say, my favorite match of the day. What a game! We knew MSI, right, was going to be another of our favorites. We probably, in my opinion, the favorite to win the league. Sorry, Slancha. Maybe Slancha has another claim to that without having seen them play. Right, that's a bold claim to make, but they just have this swagger, and they're coming in from UPSL and with such a great first season in the first, the Premier Division, and they were good. They were really good. I'm not taking anything away. Etihad, though, I had some real questions about them.
Mm,
In all honesty, about how they finished last season. They weren't, a playoff team. They weren't a team that was really a threat to win the league or get promotion. But man, have they improved! And this was a game that 3 times MSI took the lead. 3 times the lead. Sorry, twice the lead was lost, and Etihad came back into the game, and it was a really physical game. I think there were some contentious moments. MSI probably have some valid appeals and some calls that I wasn't so sure about, and I'm not a referee, so I'll put that disclaimer on it. But I loved their response. Like, I hate when I see teams, blame things on the referee, and even this one, they might have had a valid claim. They didn't. The coaching staff continued to say, I don't want to see that. Like, I don't care. I want you to play the game. And if they don't have that response, I think this very, very easily could have been an Etihad, draw, or possibly even an Etihad win. And in MSI, were able to pull out that 4-3 victory. But got to give credit to the goalkeepers. Dominic Nasiamba, I believe, was the goalkeeper's name in the second half. Final 10 minutes of the game, right? Etihad, it's a 4-3 lead for MSI Pro, and there's a penalty kick called on MSI. Again, contentious moment. MSI, not sure if they agreed or not, whatever. From the spot, Dominic Nasiam makes not only a save, but holds on to it, icing out the game. Those are the
mm.
moments you live for as a goalkeeper. And it was probably my moment of the week, you know what I mean? As far as there was all these goals, but that was what was the difference for MSI. I think MSI is going to be aware that this is not a league that they can take lightly, based on that first week. And Etihad, even in a loss, there's so much confidence. I went and personally had to congratulate Noah and Osama Hassan, who run the team, and said, what a great work, especially during Ramadan. I don't know how players do that, but that's an aside. Great, great work for both sides, and it was a really encouraging first week.
Yeah, I mean, Etihad, like, you got to give them props. I mean, we saw what they did in the tournament in the Morton Cup, and then to turn around and do and start the season like this against a strong MSI side. I mean, or MSI, yeah, MSI side.
MSI, yeah.
Like they're both teams solid performance. Obviously, I missed the first half because I was doing Boldies and Ambition, but when I turned it on, man, that was an exciting game. I was listening to it and I was just hearing your voice and I was like, holy. And then obviously when I got home, I started watching it. And man, that was a good game. That was
Yeah.
such a good game. Really excited to see for what MSI does, but then really how Etihad continues to grow. Because for me, this is like night and day compared to last year.
Oh yeah,
They're
they added up top was the biggest difference. They added teeth to their attacking, and it allowed them to, I think, put some pieces into their back line that they had to kind of move up the field before. Enes Belkir is for real in terms of his vertical presence. Getting up the field, he's fast, he's got long strides, and he's really good in the air. He's going to be a problem for a lot of teams of any level. I want to move us quickly into power rankings because I know we only have, I think, 3 minutes.
Wait, hold on. I don't think we could do power rankings because I this is an executive decision. Don't hate me for it, Noah. I think we should wait to watch Slancho play.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that, sorry, we're leaving everybody hanging. Don't hate us. You got to tune in on the next week. We will have our power rankings. Feel free to lobby your team's case and show us something in week 2, right? This will be fresh in our memory for the power rankings. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please, please hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. We're really glad we had a lot of participation in the chat. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone in the chat, but we really appreciate Jeremy, Mr. Taylor, Mike Story, goalkeeper for A3. Peter, been really supportive. Thank you, Peter. We really appreciate not only joining us, but also the feedback and helping us. Windmonger, Toros number 1 says Windmonger. Windmonger, I appreciate you, and I'll see you at the field this week. I'll be out there supporting and covering y'all. He said Messi about to be playing at South Lakes Park. And Mango, of course. Thank you all for participating during the chat. And Austin.
And
Austin, hi.
and if you have not done so, please do make sure you hit that subscribe button, share, and we will see you all next week.